Welcome to USFL Today, the off-season edition. We're your hosts, Angelo and Luke Miller. Make sure you follow me on X or Twitter at USFL Today and at NJ_Generals, and follow Luke at Luke Miller PFN. How you doing, man?
Doing well. Just trying to keep up with all this off-season action.
It's been an awesome off-season simply because of the amounts of guys that have signed between both spring leagues into the NFL and have been getting lots of action during the preseason. And then, of course, we've got just the NFL preseason. So it's not been a break from football since the USFL season concluded in July, Luke.
No, it really hasn't. I mean, the season was awesome, especially for me as a Stallions fan, but it was also demanding in a way just to keep up with everything that was going on. And so I was kind of looking forward to the offseason for things to slow down a little bit. And I guess they have, but not by much. It's been a lot to keep up with all the guys being signed, their performances in the preseason, and things looming on the horizon. So, as the USFL matures as a league, I think we're kind of getting into that really, more robust offseason kind of stage where, there really is kind of news, obviously it ebbs and flows, but really news year round.
It's fun because the NFL was that league that initially went from like, hey, here's our season and all our news is compartmentalized in this little period of time. But then they became the year-round league with all of their news and the way they stagger a lot of their important dates throughout the offseason to keep the fans engaged, whether it's the draft, whether it's the schedule release, whether it's free agency period and all of that kind of stuff. And now the USFL, like you said, as it grows, has the opportunity to have a similar kind of offseason, which leads me into, I was going to start with the USFL to NFL progress report, but let's skip over since you brought it up. There's a potential USFL free agency period beginning on October 1st, which I heard through my grapevine the other day, which will be for those USFL players that have not re-signed with their teams. So come October 1, a guy like, say, Toby Johnson, who hasn't yet signed with the Generals, could be talking to the other 7 teams in the league. Also, a guy like Cam Eccles-Looper, for example. That makes for an interesting offseason dynamic, Luke, doesn't it?
It really does. You mentioned a couple Generals. I know that's kind of who you're most familiar with. I'm most familiar with the Stallions. I've been kind of keeping track of this myself, and I think my records here are accurate, which again, I don't have access to every player's contract, so I don't necessarily know. There could be some people that maybe only signed a 1-year deal, that maybe there was some kind of clause or something. It's hard to say.
Let me add a caveat to that real quick, Luke, that the free agency is for those guys whose initial 2022 2-year contracts are expiring. And from my information, they expire at the end of September.
Right. So at least for the Stallions, based on what I've been tracking, I think as of today, as of recording, there's 7 guys that kind of fit that bill. And just to give you a sense of some of the names, some of them, if you're just kind of maybe more casual USFL follower, you might not recognize, but I think some of them you definitely will recognize. And so if you think about this, maybe not a lot, but maybe a handful of guys from each team, we might be talking about 40 or 50 guys that quote unquote hit the market and could really shake up some rosters in some ways. So for the Stallions, for example, you've got on the offensive side guys like Bo Scarborough, wide receiver Adrian Hardy, who's kind of been an off and on starter for the Stallions the last 2 years. And then wide receiver Mookie Darius, who hasn't played as much, but has been around. Some big names on the defensive side, defensive lineman, defensive tackle Willie Yarberry, who's been
the
Stallions defense. Maybe one of, if not their best, kind of quietly best defensive player, defensive end Dondre Tillman. Really interested to see what happens with him. Defensive end Jonathan Newsom, kind of a veteran leader for the Stallions defensive line, and then safety Tyree Robinson, 2-year starter for them in the secondary. So, yes, the Stallions have been able to kind of lock up some of the biggest name guys like Jamar Smith recently re-signed. We just saw this week Christian McFarland, their other starting safety, re-signed.
That's a big one for them.
Yeah, so there definitely have been some big name guys that they've been able to secure, but there are still a handful of key contributors from the past year or two that, in theory, could be playing for a different team in the USFL or a different league come next spring if they don't get an NFL opportunity. And so I will be very interested to see, again, you sort of take that. That's just kind of one example, but you take that and multiply it by 8 teams.
Right.
There could be some really interesting things happening. And we've already seen some, interesting engagements on Twitter. You brought up Cam Eccles-Looper. He's tweeted at Jamar Smith. about, possibly linking up in Birmingham. Mark Thompson tweeted at Kyle Sloter at some point, which it's hard to tell. Does that mean Sloter could potentially be looking at going to Houston? Does that mean
Right.
Thompson could be looking at coming to Birmingham? Does that mean they both could be leaving their teams to go somewhere completely different? There's a lot of moving pieces with that one. But it could make, for kind of an interesting fall for the
Oh
USFL, which in
yeah.
the past has kind of been a
The th-
dead period.
Yeah,
So
exactly. It was quite a dead period last year in the fall, up until we got the news about Memphis being moved over into that market. And that was in like the middle, like November 11th or something. So this is a bit earlier than that, and it helps bridge that gap between the off season or the season ending and the off season lull. One of the things that I wanted to ask you though is, and I don't know the dynamic, we're purely speculating here, but what really happens when someone's a free agent? Okay, like Toby, for example, is not, maybe not come back to New Jersey. He hasn't signed a contract. He's now open to speak to other teams. What do teams have in the form of budget flexibility to sign someone from an outside organization? Do they have the ability? Will there be a bidding war, for example? I mean, this is a heavily regulated, salaried league. So I wonder exactly what kind of offers could teams make to get a guy to jump if money's equal kind of across the board?
yeah, that's a great question. And I saw somebody tweet about this. I wish I could remember who it was so I could give them credit, but I thought they made a good point, and I've been thinking something similar myself. But you kind of get a strange sort of free agency because money is not a factor in the same way that it is, for example, in like the NFL, right?
Correct.
A lot of times in the NFL, a player, not always, but a lot of times goes to the highest bidder, right? Well, in the USFL, at least as far as I understand, with the union, with kind of some of the ways that things are being standardized in the league, my understanding is that the money is pretty equivalent for players across the board, right? It's not like well, the Stallions paid Magoo X million last year,
Right.
and this other team only could pay their quarterback however many 100,000 or something like that. I mean, it seems like for the most part, the majority of players are sort of a set contract. And so then if you're talking about a guy trying to make a decision in free agency, and if you sort of, from what I understand, for at least most of these guys, I would think you kind of potentially take the money piece out of the equation, then do you get like these super teams formed where it's kind of like, hey, you can get paid, that amount to be on a team that only won 3 games last year, or you can come, let's say, potentially to Birmingham or to, Pittsburgh or New Orleans or whatever, and be another piece here with us. We're going to be good again. Let's win a championship. And then you're going to get noticed more by NFL scouts or, whatever the case may be. Or, maybe guys, hey, I played with that guy in the past, or I played with that guy in college, or
Correct.
I know that coach. So like, I want to go be there. I mean, it's just obviously we're not players in this league. It'd really be interesting. It's something I want to get more info from some guys on the inside is, how are they thinking through that? Because, and again, maybe there's some things we don't know. Maybe there is a little bit of flexibility in the
There
budget
could
that
be
we're not
some money.
aware of,
Yeah.
where, maybe somebody can say, hey, we can give you a signing bonus or, something like that to where teams can kind of try and lure guys. But again, assuming that money either isn't or is not as big of a factor, then I think it'll be really fascinating to see what plays into guys' decisions. If they choose to go somewhere else, why would they?
I think what you say is accurate, which is guys will be looking more at situational fit and do they like what's going on at another team versus say where they're currently at. And like you made a point, which was maybe there's a coach that they get along with or they'd like to learn from, or maybe there's a few players that they played with in another league or in college or something like that, or just a couple of their boys are there and they want to go play with them. So the lure is a little different than say big money or come to a city you love, because they may not even be in that city yet. So we don't even know that
Yeah.
aspect. That's for like another show to talk about the cities. We won't even talk about that right now. So I think it's guys searching out the best situation for them to continue to grow and try to get closer to their NFL dream versus looking for a raise. Because, like you said, it might be a minimal one involved, but that probably won't be the deciding factor to tip guys to one place or another.
Yeah. And I'll just say, you just opened up a can of worms with the city thing. So I won't get all the way into it. But I just, as an example, if you remember a year ago, Ahmad Gooden, he
Yes.
ended up being released by the Gamblers and signing with the Breakers because of some family things, and he's from Birmingham, and he wanted to
Closer
be
to home.
closer to home.
I remember
New
that.
Orleans was still playing in Birmingham, and actually Cam Eccles-Looper is another guy who, I think part of the reason maybe he's interested in Birmingham as a potential landing place is he's from Alabama.
He's an Auburn
Auburn
guy.
High School, an hour south of Birmingham. So, I think you raise an interesting point, right? Of some of these guys, this is a shorter season, and they might want to be able to live closer to home so family can come watch and play, or
Right.
maybe cost of living. They might have people there they can live with, or they might be closer to where they train. They don't have to pack up and move. So, I hadn't considered that a lot too, but I do think that is something to watch where. Guys are going to have their reasons for where they want to go, and again, it's not going to be maybe as simple as well, money talks. That's where I'm going to go play.
I agree. Let's talk about the USFL to NFL progress update. The other day, we hit the century mark of spring players infiltrating NFL camps. That's between the USFL and the XFL. And I saw a couple of other guys getting signed over the last day or so. So we've breached that 100-player mark, which is fantastic. The question is, how many are going to stick? I will be honest and tell you that I never watch NFL preseason because I just can't. It puts me to sleep. I'll read about it the next day. I will follow the progress based on what other people are tweeting or sharing or printing. But as far as firsthand knowledge, I'm not, immersing myself in it in that regard. But I will tell you this much. I am super impressed by Levi Bell this preseason.
Yeah, he was a guy, 2023 graduate, tried to make it into the NFL. Things didn't pan out at first. Smaller school guy. I can't remember exactly where he went to school, but I think smaller school guy. And decided to come play for the Panthers, who if I remember correctly, drafted him in the USFL draft, got his rights, and was dominant in just a couple weeks of USFL action. Really made a difference for them. And if he'd played a whole season in the USFL, I think he would have been, potentially an all USFL type player. One of the guys we would have been talking about as one of the best defensive players in the league. So unsurprisingly, quickly got picked up by the Seahawks and has been one of, I think I saw PFF rated him, I want to say, as like a top 3 defensive rookie so far in the preseason. And I know he was one of the top rated players in the USFL by PFF as well. So yeah, one of those guys who just, I'm not sure we'll see him back in the USFL for a while, if ever,
that way.
Because he just seems to have what it takes, and he's really making the most of every opportunity he's been given. So I think we might be seeing the beginning of a long NFL career for him.
Anyone else jumping out at you so far? Jace Sternberger, I've seen make a couple of big plays so far, and he really looks like the kind of guy that he fits the type of offense that the Bills are running.
Yeah, I would love to see him stick there. Obviously, I got the chance to watch him in Birmingham up close, this whole past season and see what he can do. And there's no question he's, very much has the talent to be able to thrive in the NFL, and obviously to be able to play with a quarterback like Josh Allen, who is creative and can, move and make things happen, kind of like Magoo did for the Stallions. I think it would be a great pairing. So he had a really good preseason game a week ago, great play, and hopefully that continues. I think the guy that I've been seeing get more sort of love than anybody else maybe is Austin Watkins Jr. for the Cleveland Browns.
Boy, he's been dynamite as well.
He really has. He was a great receiver for the Stallions. He wasn't a marquee guy for them. For most of the year, as far as a receiver spot, it was Davion Davis. And then, at times when he was healthy, it was Deon Cain. Watkins was kind of the third guy in line. And, that's kind of obviously one of the challenges when you have a team with as much talent as the Stallions did. Is not everybody's going to be able to showcase what they can do week in and week out, right? Not everybody's going to be able to sort of be that guy, that marquee guy. And Watkins had some great plays for the Stallions. He was obviously a key part of what they were able to do offensively. But, I don't know that people would have picked him as the guy that would go to the preseason and make the noise that he has. But, he's really been dominant. I think last I checked, I want to say he either had the most or like second most receiving yards out of all players in the preseason, multiple touchdown catches, all kinds of highlights from practices of one-handed grabs and mossing guys left and right. And he's definitely got the body and the build. He's 6'3", I think 210. He's a good size receiver who can move, has great hands. And it's been awesome to see the love that he's getting from
He's
people in
gonna
Cleveland.
make it a difficult decision
Yeah,
come cut
for
down
sure.
time in September.
And I know a lot of Browns fans who are going to be very displeased if he's not still on the team. So I think he's earned himself a spot somewhere, whether that's with the Browns, whether they let him go and another team picks him up, or whether he ends up on a practice squad or something like that. I don't anticipate he'll be back with the Stallions, but really happy for him, and it's great to see him make the most of this opportunity.
Speaking of, out of the 100+ guys, I forget what the ratio is, USFL to XFL out of that 100, but out of the USFL players that have been signed in the NFL, no New Orleans Breakers. What's that all about?
Well, they got one.
One, right.
Yeah,
Now
yeah,
they just got one.
yeah, yeah. That, I mean,
Baffling.
it is strange. I mean, I think, it'd be interesting to go inside, be a fly on the wall in NFL, sort of GM's office, and just kind of, when the USFL comes up, hear them, talk through things. But, if you had to pick, what team is going to be the team that only have one player signed by this point in the offseason, I mean, the Breakers would have been, close to the bottom probably of my list of teams
Correct.
that come to mind, just because obviously they were a very talented team, a very good team, playoff team. But yeah, for whatever reason, their players have kind of been overlooked. And you know, on the one hand, I mean, if you're a Breakers fan, I know that's kind of disappointing to see, because you want to see your guys get a shot. I
Of
mean,
course.
you want to that these guys are good and deserve an opportunity, especially when lots of other people, obviously over 100 other people, are getting an opportunity. Um, but on the other hand, I mean, I would think maybe that kind of makes you excited about
Everybody's
next year.
back.
Yeah, everybody's coming back, and what could be possible. And obviously, they lost their quarterback,
Yeah.
and it's still unclear exactly what his plans are. As far as I know, I haven't heard anything on that front.
Yeah, McLeod.
Um, if they can find a quarterback and they potentially bring back all the other pieces they had, and if you look at a team like the Stallions, who's lost 15 players to the NFL, then maybe year three, maybe third time is the charm, and it's fine the year they're able to kind of get over that hump and kind of beat their arch nemesis in the South. But yeah, strange thing. I mean, they had some really fantastic players on both sides of the ball, and but yeah, for whatever reason, just not what scouts have been looking for at this
Not
time.
piquing the NFL's interest for some reason.
Yep.
Speaking of interesting, did you get a set of USFL cards?
I have not yet. I'm considered it. I was definitely a trading card, kid growing up.
Sure.
But it's been a long time since I bought any.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like they came out on sale. I remember at the beginning of the season, kind of, earlier on, and I kind of thought about it, but then kind of forgot about it. And then, it kind of came out where they, hot off the press. And then I was like, oh, that's cool. But, I heard some people had some, minor issues with just shipping or.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. From what I heard, like, it kind of depended on the vendor you bought them from. Certain vendors were really efficient, got them to you
Target.
quickly.
I recommend you go to Target.
Yeah.
They were fast and efficient, and I had it in like 2 days. It was in my mailbox.
Yeah, that's what everybody who I talked to said. Like, people that got them from Target had no issues. People that tried to get them elsewhere for whatever reason, or at least some people I talked to, had some issues. So, so then I kind of held off, and so I don't know. We'll see. I've got to decide if I've waited this long, so I don't know if I'll end up pulling the trigger now. But once I see, I don't know. Once I see like a signed Magoo card, that might push me over the edge.
That'll be your motivation.
Just to see if I could potentially get one of those or something like that. But I was also, I'm not going to lie. I mean, this is like my Stallions bias showing, but I was also pissed that Magoo wasn't like featured anywhere on the advertising, which was probably like decided upon and made like, before the season started. Yeah. It's probably too late to like kind of change that. But I was like, man, if you were going to put a guy on the box for this past season, he'd be the guy. But
that'd be the man.
Again, that was probably too late for that kind of thing. But yeah, so you got a set?
Yeah. So back when they first announced that there was going to be a set, if you recall, there was like a way to order packs of cards, and you can get them digitally or whatever first, and then they'd mail them to you. So I will preface this by saying I was a major card collector, in my youth. I'm talking about from like age 10 till probably about 18 or 19, I bought a bunch of stuff. I've still got most of that. One of my prized possessions is the 1985 USFL card set, 132 cards. It's in that little box. I'll show it to you one day on a future show. That is one of the more prized possessions that I have, but admittedly have not bought much over the last bunch of years. To me, it's like market saturation. There's a brand for every team that exists. There's that many brands of cards, and now I'm a outsider, so I wouldn't know what's a good card to buy, what's not a good card to buy as far as brand, what type do I, it's all beyond me. I'm not the guy that gets his card graded. I'm not sending it out to the PSA place for them to tell me I've got a near mint 9.5 whatever, to try to sell it and flip it. I know people do that too. I'm just into having stuff I like. So I did buy a pack in the beginning, but it was like $10 for 3 cards. And I was like, well, I'm not buying more of these to try to make a set. I'll just wait till the set comes out. The set comes out, and I ordered 2 boxes. I ordered 2 sets. I figure I'll open one and I'll keep the other sealed for future prosperity, perhaps, right? So far, that strategy has not yet worked for me in all the years I've been buying cards. I've got sealed sets of stuff that's still probably worth what I paid for it, whenever I got it, right? But I do order the 2 sets. Like I said, I got them relatively quickly from Target. While I was waiting for shipping in the interim, our friend Ducky was running a raffle of some kind where he was giving away USFL card sets to people who liked the specific tweet of his. Now, I don't even remember liking that tweet, but I must have at some point during my scrollings, because on the day of his big drawing, you clicked on Ducky's little spinning wheel there, and it stops on all the people that entered were on the wheel, and it stopped on my name, USFL Today. So I win a card set from Ducky. So this was in the interim before I get my 2 card sets. So I'm like, ooh, here's what I'm going to do. The 2 that I ordered from Target, I'm keeping both of them sealed, and I'll open the one Ducky sends me, right? So now fast forward, it's like 3 weeks later, and I have yet to get the Ducky card set in my post office box, right? And the other day, he shoots me an IM, and he says, hey, did you get any autographs out of that box, or are you the kind that doesn't open your boxes? And I said, well, I didn't open the boxes that I bought. I'm going to wait to open the one that you sent me. I'll open it when I get it. And he says, what do you mean? He says, you didn't get it? I said, Ducky, I didn't get it. Did you send it? He goes, hold on a second. So now it's like radio silence for a little bit, and he's gone. And he comes back and he says that he sent it to his own address. Like his old address. So yeah. I guess he must have had like a Target account, and like his old address was still in there. And when he went to like put my address, I guess, to ship it to me, he inadvertently sent it to his old address. So it's like a month later now, everybody, and I have yet to get that card set from Ducky. So maybe this week, maybe next week.
We all need to, everyone who views this, we all need to go and spam Ducky and start demanding, pitch with pitchforks, where are Angelo's cards?
Yeah, that's a good idea. Let's like hashtag like, something to irritate Ducky somehow. That would be fun.
That does sound like something he would do.
It does. It made me laugh. He laughed too. It was pretty funny to me, like Ducky just like totally spacing out and sending the card set to himself. I thought it was a scam.
The question is, does like somebody else live at that address now and like got the cards and opened them and like, oh, nice.
I actually think that he's securing another set to send to me. So I don't believe he's recovering the one that he lost.
Man, that was probably the autograph Magoo card in there.
Oh, that there's like the best card is in that box that I'm never going to see.
And somebody probably got and was like, man, I thought the USFL ended a long time ago.
Yeah, first of all, the person's got to be like, who's Angelo? Because he wrote my name on it. Sure. I think he put my name. I don't even know. Who knows what that mess ended up looking like? But that's the Ducky story. So for those of you that are wondering, I have yet to get the box that I'm going to open, and when I open it, I'll share with you what I plucked out of there if there's any gems.
There you go.
Yeah. It'll be fun. I love the idea that there's USFL cards again. They did not have them in the premier season this year or last year. They did not have them in the USFL's original premier season back in '83 either. They only made a set in '84. Tweets of the week. You got anything?
We kind of already talked about this, but I'm just gonna give a shout out to my guy. So there's a guy who kind of sometimes works with us over at the USFL newsroom, and his name's Nicholas Thornbush, and he is like the man when it comes to keeping up with just rosters.
That's a guy that sends out like the spreadsheets every so often, right?
He's got the spreadsheet. Yep. I'm pulling up the tweet here, but he's got the spreadsheet and all that. Like, if you got a question, like, he's the guy to ask. And so, he's kind of my go-to guy. He's been helping me keeping up on everything. And he was the one who tweeted out the other day that, it was actually based on an XFL tweet. Here it is. But he's the one who actually tweeted out the other day that, there was the 100th XFL,
right,
USFL signing. And, and I think obviously, I didn't know what to expect with, it being both leagues. And, last year we saw a lot of USFL guys signed. A couple of years ago, we saw a lot of AAF and XFL 2020 guys signed.
Yeah.
So I thought there would be a lot, but you didn't really know, right? Like, is it going to come from mostly one league? Is it going to come from the other league? Is it going to be a smaller amount of just elite players from each league?
Yeah.
But, thankfully, I think it's only kind of grown the prominence of these leagues. And I mean, right now, these training camp rosters are 90 guys. Like,
all the way till the end.
Yeah, if you pulled together all the XFL or USFL players that have signed with an NFL team and have been with an NFL team this preseason, you would have more than an entire NFL roster at this point. Like, you could kind of put them all on one team, and one of the
team 33.
Teams, one of the teams in the league would be just guys that came out of a spring league. So, so I think just hitting that landmark, that kind of milestone. There was some chatter online, this week about, oh, well, a lot of these guys aren't going to make it anyway. And like, we could kind of go into all of that. But at the end of the day, I think it's a significant milestone. I think it's a great achievement. I think it demonstrates the quality of play in these leagues. I think it demonstrates the importance of guys in these leagues, and the opportunity that they're getting to develop and how that's paying off for them in terms of their careers. I mean, just today, I saw both Trey Lance for the 49ers and Kellen Mond for the Browns, two guys that, to varying degrees, had a good bit of hype coming out of college as potential NFL quarterbacks, who have gotten basically little to no opportunity to play or develop.
Right.
And teams are moving on from them.
And, right. I believe the Niners said Sam Darnold's their number 2 now, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So there you go. And they gave up a lot to get Trey Lance.
Yep. And supposedly, I guess they're going to start looking at either trading him or, figuring out how to move on from him. And so it's just like, if you look at a guy like, again, we'll just use Alex Magoo, right? Like, his career is on the up and up trajectory, and he should be on an NFL roster or at least a practice squad, this year after being out of the league for a couple of years because of how he was able to develop under Skip Holtz in the USFL and the, performance that he had this past year. And you look at a guy like Trey Lance, who, I wish I should have kept that tweet, but I saw a tweet that talked about like the number of actual game reps, he's gotten over the past however many years it's been.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was just so
minuscule. Yeah, it was a small amount. I saw that tweet too.
Yeah. And it's just like, no wonder the guy's, kind of struggling. I mean, any of us would in that situation if we're not ever actually getting to play. Right. So yeah, I mean, people can say, oh, well, these guys, a lot of them are going to get signed, but then get cut. And again, yeah, maybe, but they're probably in a better place than they were a year ago. They're in a better place than they would be if these leagues didn't exist. And, a lot of them will stick around and make practice squads or rosters, and this will be the beginning of an NFL sort of career for them. And so
no matter what they get out of it, a season, 2 seasons, 3 seasons as a, player in the big league, it doesn't matter. The whole point is to get there and then figure out how to stay there for as long as you can.
Right. And even if a guy does get signed in the preseason and let's say, unfortunately, gets cut, which a lot of these guys will, at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, like, would that guy have even gotten that opportunity to be in a camp if he wasn't in the USFL or in the XFL?
No way.
And for some of them, maybe they would, but I'm sure there's a lot of them who wouldn't. That would be overlooked. That would be forgotten.
It wouldn't be 100, Luke.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. I mean, even if you look at a guy like a Jay Sternberger, right, who like has the talent to be playing in the NFL, but his first kind of stint, it didn't work out. Teams decided to move on from him. Nobody was picking him up. Nobody really wanted him. He had a chance to come back and sort of you know, capture the attention of NFL teams by what he was able to do on the field. And again, if that wasn't the case, then teams might have just been like, "Yeah, we're not going to take the risk on this guy. Like, we'll bring in, an undrafted free agent, or whatever the case
Someone
may
who's been
be."
playing more recently, even. Right.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
And
So yeah, I
these
think
leagues
it's
have a
awesome.
place. They're proving their place, these leagues. And, now with a third year and a second year for each league, respectively, coming in 2024, there's no reason to expect that this spring league to NFL influx of players won't continue to grow in the future. My tweet of the week, it's from a couple days ago, and it centers, Luke, on the continuing pipeline between the Massachusetts Pirates of the IFL and the USFL, because the New Jersey Generals have signed yet another Massachusetts Pirate, wide receiver Fabian Guerra. And he also played with Memphis in the AAF. He's also obviously been in the IFL, the CFL, the NAL, the AFL. The kid has been in so many different places trying to develop, and now the Generals are taking a shot at him. So I think this will be very interesting. I wonder how they view his talents as far as their scheme. I don't know. But again, for me, the real eye-opener was, here we are again with another Massachusetts Pirate making his way into the USFL. I don't know what the connection is. I'm going to have to dig a little deeper, Luke, because there's got to be like a single commonality person in there someplace who's steering that ship.
Yeah, it's impressive. You're steering that ship, pun intended, the
Oh,
Pirates.
right. Pun
Uh,
unintended completely.
I was thrilled to see that tweet. Fabian, I've actually followed him a little bit just because he played college football at Fairmont State, which is just a small kind of state school in West Virginia, which is originally where I'm from. And not a lot of guys at those kinds of schools, either in West Virginia or across the country, get looked at a lot or get the same opportunities. Again, just another testament to why these leagues, I think, are really valuable, and life changing for lots of people. And so yeah, super super excited for him to get his opportunity, to be on even a little bit bigger stage after he's kind of bounced around to so many different leagues, but obviously has continued to work and hone his craft and prove that he deserves a shot. And so it's awesome to see him, get that. I can't imagine what it felt like for him to kind of sign the paperwork on that deal.
Yeah, it must have been a great feeling for him to continue to see his progress be recognized. And for all those players out there looking for a place to latch onto, find out who's running the Massachusetts Pirates and find your way onto that roster, because clearly they are a specific stepping stone to the next level. No doubt about that.
And talented guys too. I mean,
for sure.
The Stallions brought in Ricky Person Jr., running back, who was with the Pirates when they brought him in, and immediately was a difference maker for the Stallions. And depending on how things shake out with,
it could stick.
Yeah, I mean, CJ Marable's right now with the Patriots. We'll see if he makes that roster or not. They got a lot of running backs, but Bo Scarborough's up in the air if he's going to be back, if he's going to be healthy, if he's going to resign, if he needs to resign, what his situation is. So, I mean, right now, I mean, it's looking like, Ricky Person could be sort of, RB1 for the Stallions in 2024. And I know a lot of people who are really excited about
Nothing wrong with that
after seeing what he did last year and the opportunities he had. So, yeah, so they've not only have they sent several players to the league, several quality players that clearly deserve to be there.
Good stuff, man. I think that puts a wrap on what we were hoping to cover today. It's been, semi-eventful last few weeks, hopefully more eventful next few weeks as we get closer to October 1st, and hopefully some other announcements about the 2024 season. I've been digging around, and it's funny. I've got people who were the media managers at the hubs asking me if I've heard anything about team hubs or relocations or anything like that. And I was trying to ask them. So I got nothing. Not right now,
I think
anyway.
it might be a few more months before we get some news on that front.
Yeah, last year we learned the Michigan and Canton hubs very early in January. the first, as a matter of fact. So I would expect that by the end of this calendar year, the league will have their plans hashed out, and then they'll kind of strategize their announcements. With any luck, I can figure that out before they announce it. They won't like it, but we'll try.
That's right.
Luke, thanks, man. This was a lot of fun. Let's definitely do it again in another few weeks. Let's let the news build up, and then we'll put another show together.
Absolutely.
Follow Luke on Twitter at Luke Miller PFN. Make sure you follow me at USFL Today. Follow my Generals account at NJ_Generals. But that's it for this week's off-season edition of USFL Today. We'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.